Up until now, we've taken examples of quatrains and explained them and analyzed them. Now, we ask you just to listen to what Nostradamus has to say about the devastation of a nuclear war, a third world war. His description is so vivid, it needs no interpretation.
The kingdom of Fez shall come to those of Europe. Fire and sword shall destroy their city. The great one of Asia by land and sea with a great army, so that blues, greens, crosses, to death he shall drive. Tears, cries and wailing, howls and terror, an inhuman, cruel heart, black and cold. Lake Geneva, the islands, the main people of Genoa, blood pours, hunger for wheat, mercy to none. The Arab prince, Mars, Sol, Venus, Leo, the kingdoms of the church will be overcome by the sea. Towards Persia, very near 1 million. Turkey, Egypt, true serpent will invade. In the Danube and Rhine shall come to drink the great camel, and shall not repent. The Rhone shall tremble, and more those of Loire, and near the Alps the cock shall ruin him. From the Black Sea and the great Tartaria, a king shall come to see France. He shall go through Aramea and Armenia, and shall leave a bloody rod in Constantinople. At the 48th degree of the climacteric, the end of Cancer, there is a very great drought. Fish in the sea, river and the lake boiled hectic, Béarn and Billard in distress from fire in the sky. If France, you cross the Ligurian Sea, you will find yourself besieged among islands and sea. Mohammed against you, more so the Adriatic. You will gnaw the bones of horses and asses. The fleet is wrecked near the Adriatic Sea. The earth trembles, pushed into the air and falls again. Egypt trembles, Mohammedans increase, and the herald is sent to call out for surrender.
So the devastation spreads across Europe, and even into Egypt and Constantinople. But it does not stop there. The United States is also involved, as we can see from a quatrain which many experts agree refers to New York as the new city.
Garden of the world near the new city, in the way of the man-made mountains, shall be seized on and plunged into a ferment, being forced to drink sulphurous, poisoned waters.
The man-made mountains, an obvious description of modern skyscrapers. Further to that is the reference to the fire in the 45th degree latitude, which is very close to the position of New York City.
The sky will burn at 45 degrees. Fire approaches the great new city. Immediately a huge scattered flame leaps up.
In answer to the question where, it's likely that most of the world will be involved. Hopefully some a little less than those specifically described by Nostradamus. Which brings us to the question of who will survive. To answer this, we need to remember Hiroshima and try to comprehend the devastation of more than 20 years of nuclear holocaust. Obviously, many of us would have no chance whatsoever. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Nostradamus does tell us the war will end, and that the West will ultimately win due to an unexpected alliance, an alliance between the USA and Russia. Now, this may seem far-fetched, but let's examine the evidence given by Nostradamus.
When those of the Arctic pole shall be united together, there shall be in the east great fear and trembling. One shall be newly elected that shall bear the brunt. Rhodes, Constantinople, shall be dyed with barbarian blood.
Those of the Arctic pole can only mean Russia and the US. As we see here at the Bering Strait, the two continents are at their closest point in the Arctic Circle. Alaska, part of the US, and Russia. And he goes on to say, in the east, great fear and trembling. So he's suggesting here that these two northern powers will unite against the east. And there's a further quatrain to support this. One day the two great masters shall be friends. Their great powers shall be increased. So, after many years of fighting, it seems that Russia herself may become uncertain, that there will be a division in the land. The south remaining with Islam due to the predominance of Muslim population, and the north joining with the US, those of the Arctic pole. And incredible as it may seem, Nostradamus suggests that this alliance will not only occur, but will triumph, as he says in several quatrains and also in one of his epistles.
For the principal eastern ruler, being for the most part moved by the northern and western men, shall be vanquished and put to death, beaten, and all the rest put to flight, and the children he had by many women put in prison. The barbarian league will be driven out. Of the two laws, the pagan one will fail.
Here he tells us the pagan law will be driven out, and goes on to talk of a king of Europe who eventually becomes a driving force for victory for the West.
As a griffin shall come king of Europe, accompanied by those of the north. Of reds and whites shall conduct a great troop, and then shall go against the king of Babylon.
There it is again, another reference to those of the north. And the reds and the whites, Russians and the West.
By Antichrist 3 shall be brought to nothing. His war shall last 27 years. The heretics dead, prisoners exiled. Blood, human body, water made red, earth shrunk.
Here, Nostradamus states definitely that the war will last for 27 years, and that the third Antichrist will be driven back and brought to nothing.
From Barcelona, from Genoa and Venice, from Sicily near Monaco united, against the barbarian the fleet shall take her aim. The barbarian shall be driven back. After this war shall have lasted a good while, there shall be a renewed reign of Saturn and a golden age. God the Creator shall say, hearing the affliction of his people, Satan shall be put and tied in the bottom of the deep, and here shall begin an age of universal peace. The ecclesiastical power shall return in force, and Satan shall be bound for the peace of 1,000 years.